Hey Leute, MysticcMarcel here, and welcome to a little video about my Nintendo Entertainment System that I bought last year at Dokomi in Düsseldorf, Germany. I paid for the console and controller €100 exact, and I also bought Super Mario Bros. Like the cartridge, only cartridge, not like the packaging or the instruction manual, like there was not in there, but yep. €100 and €20 for Super Mario Bros. I think that's pretty fair. And yeah, this is supposed to be like the start of a little retro gaming series. I did record some of my other consoles I had in German, like you can see in these videos. But I wanted to do these for English videos as well, because I swapped to English if you didn't know. Like here's the video, it's been a while, but yeah, we do English content nowadays. So I'm gonna do every single console, but in like a timeline fashion. So the Nintendo Entertainment System, originally known as the Famicom in Japan when it released in 1983, is the oldest console I own. This thing was Nintendo's like first home console they ever made. So this is obviously like this, the look of this thing, the controller, the console itself, especially the controller though, it just screams retro. This is like, if you think of retro gaming or retro, this probably comes to mind, like this design of the controller or the box, the NES console itself. But I'm calling it NES, I just said it's Famicom in Japan. Yes, that is because this thing released in Japan under the name Famicom, which is short for family computer. But in the US in 1985, this released under the name Nintendo Entertainment System. And this design actually also came over in 1986 to Europe. It's not the same design as the Japanese had for their Famicom. That's why the different name. And 1983, that was over 40 years ago. I think 41 or 42 years ago. This thing is old, okay? But still pretty good condition. I hope I look this good when I'm 40 plus. And yes, you've probably seen the title of this video. I called this NES a retro revolution. And why did I do that? Because in 1983 the US gaming market suffered the great video game crash of 1983. And when Nintendo released this console in 1985, this thing basically single-handedly revitalized the US gaming market. Wasn't that bad in Europe, I think, because websites always talk about the US market specifically when it comes to the video game crash in 1983. So yeah, this thing basically revitalized the gaming market, played the newest Nintendo approved games with. Because consumers were basically getting a confirmation by Nintendo themselves that the games they bought were actually like quality controlled with the Nintendo seal of approval, which was on the boxes of many of the NES games that released. So they were only released through Nintendo, approved by Nintendo. So consumers, when you would see this back in the day, probably in the store, I wasn't even an idea yet, so I can only guess. Go into the aisle at like your local store and see this, and it says Nintendo Entertainment System. So it's not like a Atari game console, it's an entertainment system. And that was a big marketing thing for Nintendo that they probably thought pretty hard about, like in order to breach into the US gaming market and not have people be turned off by, oh, okay, gaming console, home console, is it even gonna be worth buying, you know? So the Nintendo seal of approval thing and just naming the console in a certain way and not having like the top loader design, but instead you open up this and put the cartridge in and push it down. Like I think it's online being called a toaster design. I don't really get why it's a toaster design, but I guess the putting in and clicking down is like a toaster, because you put, but toast would be top loaded as well and then with a side. But I just saw that term online, toaster toaster design. Beats me. I didn't live back then. I didn't name this thing, okay? And speaking of worth buying, this thing cost around $180 to $200, like US dollars back in the day. And I saw some sites estimate like what it would cost nowadays in USD. Probably somewhere in the $400, $500 range, which is pretty insane, but you know, inflation and all that stuff is a thing. And yeah, speaking of like consumers were needing some confirmation that this was worth buying, Nintendo also did a good job of bundling the NES with certain games and gadgets like the Zapper gun or the ROB robot accessory, which, you know, made it not just look like a home console like all the other things, but actually an entertainment system. Like you're having a little Zapper gun and shooting things in Duck Hunt would have enticed me back in the day if that was me, like let's say 20-year-old me in 1983, would have excited me, not gonna lie. Like if I had the money, I would have bought this. Made it not just look like an ordinary home console with bad games, but gave you a seal of approval for the games, that they're actually going to be of quality. Named it entertainment system, redesigned it instead of the Famicom design, gave the US and Europe this design. That's basically how this thing sold over 60 million units, which made it actually, until the Wii came along, the most sold console ever. So yeah, let's actually get into a little bit of a showcase of the console itself. Let's start with the console itself. The design is really simple. Like, compare this to a PS5, PS4, the Nintendo Switch, or etc., modern consoles, handhelds, etc. This is so simple. You have the power button, you have your reset button, you have a player 1 and 2. There were actually some expansion things for making this 4-player or connecting a keyboard, for example, but that's something I didn't want to get that much into because I would just have to put up pictures on screen because I don't own these things. But yeah, I do own a controller which we can plug in later and record some gameplay that you can see when we talk about the games this console had. You have the name and, in my case, European version. And yeah, that's it. You can put this up and down. You can press power, you can press reset, put in your controller. And then on the back of the console, you have an AC adapter, AC 9 volt. Then you have a channel 3, channel 4 switch, which I had no idea what this was for. This basically did nothing when I plugged it into my adapter, so I can convert this to HDMI. Or if I plug this into my older TV from like 2007 that still has native AV ports and not just HDMI and DisplayPort. This was basically for when you use the RF switch instead of these two audio and video adapters, the AV adapters. If you use the RF switch, which was basically plugging into the old cable TV system. I don't exactly know what this is. I will link something on screen, like a short explanation, or link it down below in the description. But basically, if your TV had already set a channel on, for example, channel 3, you could swap this to channel 4, and then the signal for the Nintendo Entertainment System would be displayed on channel 4, and other way around as well. So this was basically for when you use the RF switch. But in my case, I have a TV that natively supports it and an adapter to HDMI for my newer monitors that use the audio and video, the AV. Normally this also has another audio, I think it's for left and right audio actually, like stereo, a white plug as well. But the NES is such an old system, this only had one audio and one video, the red and yellow cable. Basically there's not too much fancy stuff. There's this sealed off part at the bottom, which I found out via a video, which I can link in the corner and down below if you are interested about some little fun facts and quirks about the NES. This was basically for an expansion slot to attach some gadgets or other devices to, but this was basically never used in the US and Europe. I think there was some prototypes made in the US, but they never actually went into production, so you can scrap that. But the Famicom in Japan had a similar slot. So yeah, we never got those, and this is basically just a reminder of what could have been now. There's basically nothing more to say about this. You got your power, then you got your video and audio, if you're going for AV or RF switch, and you got the power it on. And that's it. And if something didn't work, or you wanted to reset the game, you just press reset. That's kind of it. It's very simple, like I said. And now let's take a closer look at the controller. This is a bit more yellow in my case than the console. The console actually aged pretty well, but the controller, I guess, suffered a little more. You got your D-pad, start select. For example, in Mario Brothers case, with select you like switch between player 1, player 2, and then press start to start the game. And then you got a B and an A button. No shoulder buttons, no like pro controller things at the bottom. Gaming used to be so simple, and sometimes it's nice to go back to these old systems like the NES, SNES, GameCube, N64 to just appreciate like the level of detail, the frame rates, and the just technology like ray tracing and stuff we have today. Like, you appreciate that stuff way more, and what developers used to be able to do with such hardware limitations. You appreciate the modern things way more if you dip into the realm of a bit of retro gaming. Whether it's through the original consoles or through emulation, I'm not judging. We don't all have money to buy this. I used to use emulators as well back in the day. Not that much today, because I don't really have that much time to game anyways, and if I have some money saved up and find a good discount or get a good opportunity to buy like an NES or any other older console, well, I almost have every console I need. Now I just need more games and more controllers. But yeah, it's a privilege. Obviously, I'm spending my money in that way, but yeah, it's just nice. All in all, it's just nice to go back to these and enjoy the simple things to appreciate the more modern and complicated things. Look at some of the games that actually released for this console. Like I mentioned, I own the original Super Mario Bros., which obviously is the most sold game on this console generation or this console. This came bundled with a lot of Nintendo Entertainment Systems when purchasing it in the store. So obviously this is one of the most, well, basically this is the most sold game. But there were other games that were also bundled with the NES, like Duck Hunt, for example, that also made it one of the most sold games. I'm gonna put a list of like the top 10 most sold games on screen for you. And it also says like which games were bundled. It's marked, it's just from Wikipedia, the top result. Like the Famicom versions of these games, these have the exact same hardware like the mainboard inside, but the American and European cartridges are like double the size or almost triple the size, because this was just done for marketing, like have a big cover of the game, make it look massive and not like a toy in quotations, like with smaller cartridges like for the Famicom. I'm gonna put this on screen because I don't own that, because that would be expensive to buy if I could even get one. In the beginning I mentioned that I only have one game, but what is Tetris doing here? The original Tetris, which was released in 1989, at least there's copyright 1989 Nintendo, all rights reserved, original content, blah, 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 on this box. We got the instruction manual in German, obviously, because European version, Germany, I live in Germany, lol, in really good condition. Like for the age of this is in such good condition. And obviously the cartridge itself, like if you see this in the store, like the cartridges, ooh, don't fall over, please, thank you. Like if you see this in the store, this would just grab your attention immediately. So, you know, the marketing was good. But yeah, this is not a Tetris that I own. I didn't steal this, no. I basically borrowed this from a friend of mine, Fendra Doofy. If you want to look him up on YouTube, he has an English no commentary and a German channel as well. And yeah, he basically gave me this and said, keep it, because he does not own a NES and I'm the only one that owns a NES now ever since last year. So we could finally test this game. He bought this like, it was probably like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Let's say 2.5, 3 years ago. But he never tested this, if it even works. He bought this on rebuy. So yeah, I'm basically borrowing this ever since like last year, basically exactly a year ago almost. And I've played this at his place, I've played this at my place, let my girlfriend play this. She's actually a big Tetris fan, so you know, it's nice to give people the experience of playing the first ever Tetris. And what surprised me about this game is that it actually has 2 modes. The first version of Tetris already. I mean, I don't have to explain Super Mario Bros. You play as Mario, you go from left to right and defeat Bowser, basically, or King Koopa. I don't know if it's Bowser actually or King Koopa in the original game. But yeah, Tetris, 2 modes and difficulty adjustments like the level and height at which some blocks are already placed and you have to get rid of them. I was very surprised that this had multiple modes. I thought this was just you plug it in, you press power, and then it just goes din 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 din. Actually, this game did not yet have the famous Tetris theme. For the Game Boy version or something, like 1 or 2 games later that entered the realm of Tetris. The din dim bim 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 bim. So that's some fun fact and a little history lesson, I guess. I would love to in the future own the original Zelda as well. Maybe Zelda 2, or I think it's called actually Link 2. No, The Legend of Zelda 2 Link's Adventure, I think is the name.
No.
I would love to maybe own that, but let's see if the prices are okay, if I can get my hands on it when I got some more money. I just bought my PC, Linux and Windows dual boot gaming PC, which will be linked on the top right if you haven't seen that video yet. Yeah, the original Donkey Kong would also be a game that I would be interested in owning. If you have Duck Hunt, you would have to kind of get the Zapper gun in like a okay or good condition, but phew, that would be money spent again, and I don't know if my portemonnaie is ready for that. I don't think my bank account is ready for that yet. So yeah, this video is going on long enough. Let's get to the conclusion. Simple, iconic, and just revolutionary. Like I said, it revolutionized the gaming market, saved it, basically, from the video game crash in 1983 in the US. And it's just simple. A simpler time, classic games that still get referenced to this day and played to this day. For example, Super Mario Bros. And Tetris speedrunning scene goes crazy for these 2 games. Actually, a little fun fact at the end of this video, the NES got a redesign in 1993, which made it look very similar to the Famicom from Japan. It had a top loader instead of the toaster design, which I still think is a weird name. And very important, the controller looked really similar, or like an early version of the SNES controller. But yes, the SNES will be the focus of the next video in this retro gaming series on this channel, the successor of the NES. So if you want to see that, maybe subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. That's actually kind of nice gewesen. That was actually kind of nice. Let's go. New video content.